The officer didn't hesitate. "Drop it," he snapped. And before the old man could even respond, the cane was ripped from his hand and broken like it meant nothing. What nobody standing on that street realized in that moment was that this single act would destroy a career, expose a system, and ignite something far bigger than one man's cruelty. Because the man they just humiliated was not alone. Elliot Grayson had a routine. Every Tuesday without fail. At exactly 9:15 in the morning, he stepped out of his small apartment building on West 142nd Street, dressed neatly, shoes polished, jacket buttoned even when the weather didn't demand it. Old habits, old pride. He couldn't see anymore, not for the past 5 years. But that didn't stop him from preparing like a man who still stood in front of a mirror. His late wife, Helen, used to say, "Dignity isn't for others to see, it's for you to feel." So Elliot kept it. Always. He reached for his cane, the one with the curved wooden handle, hand-carved, smooth, worn just enough to fit perfectly into his grip. Helen had made it for him. Back when his vision first started fading, back when they still believed it might come back. It didn't. But the cane stayed. And so did the routine. The neighborhood knew him. Not just as the blind man, but as Mr. Grayson. Former school principal, 30 years in education. The kind of man who remembered names, birthdays, and which kids needed extra attention even when nobody else noticed. "Morning, Mr. G," a teenager called from across the street. Elliot smiled faintly. "You're late again, Marcus." "How do you always know?" "You walk faster when you're guilty." Marcus laughed and ran off. Elliot kept moving. Step by step, tap by tap, his cane sweeping gently ahead, mapping the world in rhythm. The cracked sidewalk near the corner, still there. The loose curb by the bakery, still uneven. He knew every inch of this path. He didn't need eyes for it anymore. He was 1 block away from the pharmacy when everything changed. A car door slammed. Heavy. Authority in the sound. Elliot paused. He didn't turn immediately. He waited. "Hey," a voice called out. Elliot stayed calm. "Sir," he responded politely. Boots approached. Vast. Deliberate. "You waving that thing around at people." Elliot lifted his cane slightly. "This is a mobility cane. I'm visually impaired." The officer stepped closer. "Too close. Looks more like a weapon to me." Elliot took a slow breath. "I assure you it's not." There was a second officer nearby. Silent. Watching. Officer Darren Cole had been having a bad week. Denied promotion, written up twice, his temper sitting just below the surface, waiting for somewhere to land. And now, in front of him, stood a man who didn't react the way he expected. No fear. No panic. Just calm. And for some reason, that irritated him more. "Drop it," Cole said. Elliot didn't. "Sir, without this." "I said drop it." The street went quiet. People noticed. Phones slowly came out. Elliot tightened his grip, not out of defiance but instinct. The cane wasn't just wood. It was balance, safety, memory, connection. Cole grabbed it, yanked it free, and snapped it across his knee. The crack echoed. Sharp, ugly, final. The wooden handle, Helen's handle, hit the pavement and rolled. Elliot froze. Not in fear. In loss. His hand remained slightly open, like it didn't understand why the cane wasn't there anymore. "Turn around," Cole barked. Elliot blinked behind his dark glasses. For what reason? Resisting, aggressive behavior. "That's not." "Turn around." And Elliot did. because at 72 years old, he knew how some battles ended. The cuffs clicked. Tight, cold, unnecessary. Across the street, a woman whispered, "Oh my God, he's blind." Someone was already recording. The patrol car door slammed shut behind Elliot. Inside, the darkness felt different. Not his usual quiet darkness. This one was loud, confined, heavy with something else. Humiliation. Across town, in a cramped office filled with screens and scattered files, a phone buzzed. Daniel Grayson looked down. Missed call. Then another. Then a message. "Daniel, it's about your father." Daniel frowned. He hit play. And everything stopped. The video was short. Less than a minute. But it was enough. His father standing there, calm, explaining himself. And then, the snap. The cuffs. The shove. Daniel didn't breathe for several seconds. Then he stood up. Very slowly. Because Daniel Grayson wasn't just anyone. He was an investigative journalist. And for the last decade, he had built a reputation exposing abuse of power, police misconduct, institutional cover-ups, corruption people thought would never surface. And now, it was personal. At the precinct, Elliot stood quietly as officers processed him. Paperwork, cold voices, no one meeting his eyes. The broken cane pieces were tossed into an evidence bag like trash. Charges, someone asked. Resisting possible assault. Elliot didn't argue. Not because he agreed, but because he understood. This wasn't about truth. Not yet. But outside, the story had already begun spreading. The video hit social media. Then local news. Then everywhere. People were asking questions. Angry questions. By the time Daniel arrived at the precinct, the atmosphere had changed. Cameras outside. Crowds forming. Voices rising. And inside, panic carefully disguised as procedure. The charges were dropped within an hour. Insufficient grounds. No apology. No accountability. Just quiet correction. But Daniel didn't leave. He stood there watching, listening, learning, because he knew this wasn't over. This was just the surface. That night, sitting across from his father in their apartment, Daniel finally spoke. "They broke it," Elliot said softly, holding the two pieces of the cane. Daniel nodded. "I'm going to fix this." Elliot shook his head gently. "Not revenge." Daniel met his gaze. "Justice." A pause. Then Elliot said quietly, "Make sure you know the difference." Daniel started digging. Not as a son. As a professional. Careful. Precise. He pulled records. Filed requests. Tracked complaints. And what he found was a pattern. Officer Darren Cole had 3 prior complaints. All dismissed. All similar. Aggressive stops. False charges. Targeting vulnerable individuals. And above him, a captain who had quietly signed off on everyone. Then came the bigger discovery. Security footage. From inside the precinct. Marked as corrupted. But Daniel knew systems. And corruption didn't look like that. He made one call. Not to media. Not to lawyers. To a federal contact. Within 48 hours. Everything unraveled. The footage was recovered. And what it showed destroyed any defense. Inside the precinct, Cole was laughing. Mocking Elliot. Pretending to be blind. other officers laughing with him. And in the background, the captain, watching, doing nothing, walking away. That footage changed everything. Federal charges were filed, not just against Cole, but against the captain for destroying evidence. Witness intimidation came to light. Past victims stepped forward. The system cracked open. And Daniel, he didn't celebrate. Not yet. Because justice isn't loud at first. It's slow, heavy, deliberate. Weeks later, a settlement was offered. Large, quiet, with conditions. Silence. Elliot refused. "This doesn't belong to me alone," he said. "It belongs to everyone they did this to." The final agreement. Public. No secrets. Full accountability. And 1 month later, Daniel placed something new on the table. Wrapped carefully. Elliot touched it. Unwrapped it slowly. A new cane. Handcrafted. Balanced. Strong. Not Helen, but made with the same care. Elliot held it. Ran his fingers along the handle. Then nodded once. "It'll do." That Tuesday, they walked together. Back onto the same street. Same route. Same rhythm. But this time, they weren't alone. Neighbors lined the sidewalks. Quiet. Respectful. Watching. Not with pity. With pride. Elliot paused. Listened. Felt it. Then stepped forward. Cane sweeping ahead. Steady. Certain. Unbroken. Because they broke the cane. But not the man. And in the end, that made all the difference.